Tracks.
About championing sustainability as a career. I'll be your host today. My name is Celine Mutuku. I'll be hosting alongside.
Habari zenyu, mko poa? Asante kwa kufika. Mimi naitwa Nick Olwa and tutasaidiana kuhost show and tujue venye kutakuwa. And of course time is limited. I think tutago all the way to our guest. Introduce then atuambie how we can get mentorship from ile wording atatupatia.
Neno la leo. Good morning everyone. My name is Gathoni Methu. I think hapa unaona kuna kitu happening on this stage. Tulikuwa na theme, practice red hair, a red jacket, and the gentleman between us. But I'm so happy to be with you today. I work for Packaging Producer Responsibility Organization. Its short form is PAKPRO. Hapo awali tulikuwa tunajulikana kama PETCO. So what we do is a mouthful, so sijui tutafuta kitabu, but we do something called extended producer responsibility, which is the producers, so manufacturers of all packaging material. That's glass manufacturers, paper, cardboard, metal, Tetra Pak, plastic, maziwa, kate, PET, maji, juice, soda, snacks, crackles, sabuni, anything that is packaged and is non-hazardous. So we represent all those manufacturers in an effort to support and mobilize the waste value chain. So who is the waste value chain? Ukifikiria takataka yako kutoka ile time umetupa kwa dustbin. Hapo ndio sasa tunachukua responsibility. So once you dispose of it, I think if you've seen what's happening in the news, NEMA has said we are pushing for segregation at source. That means that you're putting your wet waste, so chakula, leftovers, vitu za kupika, onions, tomatoes in one bag and everything else in another. And then your hazardous packaging, that's your diapers, sanitary towels in another. And then electronic waste, we have a number of disposal sites. When I say we, I don't necessarily mean PAKPRO, but now I mean the whole waste value chain of Kenya. So PAKPRO works to represent our manufacturers and make sure that their material is taken from the environment. Mnonanga hiyo sign, please return to me, kwa mkate and everything else. So the please return to me looks a bit different. It looks like the waste your house and picking them and taking them and sorting into different categories. It looks like the waste picker who walks on the road, getting better personal protective equipment because they're handling dirty material in that sense. It looks like when they sell this material, they sell it at a better price. So already kuna kuanga na watu wenye wananunua hizi vitu. Si mnaonanga kwa barabara around. But some material is not picked. So how can we make that material get picked? The fastest way is by increasing the collection, the purchasing price. And so PAKPRO, formerly trading as PETCO, has been in operation for 6 years now. And in the first 5, it was operating as PETCO. So tulikuwa tunasaidia just initiatives on recovering PET, the plastic bottle ya maji, kama yo unakunywanga maji nayo juice ama soda ama juice. And we're happy to say that in that exercise, we're able to support over 2,500 collectors across the country. And we were able to push out over 180 million shillings. Not that is ours, but coming from these companies. So it's the companies that make this particular product and put their bidhaa inside there. So they put their juice. So you have Kevian, you have many other companies, Coca-Cola, Biofoods, Naivas, Highlands, Coastal Bottlers. These were our first members. And now with the transition, we have over 100 members who are taking responsibility. So msiseme private sector haifanyi kazi. There's a law that made it mandatory, the Sustainable Waste Management Act. So what do I do for the organization? I oversee our membership docket. So all these members give us their declarations every month and tell us nimeka hii material, and so then we work to make sure we are able to recover a percentage of that material. And so kama customer service. So as I talk about bits and pieces of my work, I will start by how did I get here? Because I have a passion for the environment. Hiyo sentence inatumiwanga sana. What do you have a passion for? I have a passion for. But I really do. Growing up, maybe I hope mtani examine mseme kama hii ni ukweli hiyo ilikuwa passion ama ni tu uongo. But nikiwa primary, my friends used to call me a germophobe. Yeah. Like si ati nilikuwa nalia nikiona uchafu, but nilikuwa nimejipanga. Like mtu nikiweka vitabu zangu, mnakumbuka ile desk ya kuinua hivi? So nilikuwa nimepanga vitabu zangu, ilikuwa maths classwork, maths homework, English classwork, English homework, science, social studies. Like nilikuwa najua hata sasa bado nakumbuka. Okay, so ilikuwa somewhere pia hapo. So unajua vile mwalimu alikuwa anakam, but bado hujamaliza kufanya kazi, so lazima utoe the next subject. But so in my efficiency, I arrange them properly so that I can just slide my hands inside and remove the exact book. So hiyo ndio ilikuwa my process system efficiency improving. Si mnasemanga kuna watu wanafanyanga system modification in organizations. And I want you to highlight and see that how you are and the things you like to do can inform the career you choose. So you might just think, oh, udem ni germophobe anapendanga atakangi takataka next to her, but na amepanga vitabu zake in a system that si lazima afungue desk ndio aone. But carry forward, that's me looking at a project or looking at tasks in the organization and seeing how do I organize them. I'm not perfect, but it's something I like to do. So when you think about your life, what are the things that you like to do that some people might think is weird, or it's easy for you to do and you just automatically do it? That's how you start knowing what are your passions, what are you skilled in, what are you shaped for? Because all of us are shaped to fulfill something in this world, and that's our unique presence. Because even here, all these cameramen, there's something unique about them. So the most important part is for you to know what is unique about you. What do I bring to the table? So that when you walk into a room, you're like, yeah, I got this. And not to say that I'm perfect. I say this and I'm thinking, there's a lot of chaos. But the point is that every day I wake up to try again. Okay? So that was primary school. Things were neat. And I can't say there was anything. I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I knew not science. I knew what I did not want to be. So I don't draw much. Actually, everyone in my family draws, and I wondered, Mimi, ilienda wapi? Like they can draw murals, guys. Mimi nilikuwa hapo art class nikijaribu kuchora Kanye West. Alikuwa very thin Kanye West, but tulijaribu. But again, it's to keep exposing yourself to things. So nilimaliza primary school. I am a believer, so I love the Lord as my personal savior. Yesu ni mwokozi wangu. And so I grew up in church. And I remember my biggest desire was to serve and to our leaders walikuwa hapo mbele nataka tu kuwakaa hao. So again, not everyone desires that. But then for me, I used to see how they serve, how they come early, and I was like, wow, hata mimi nataka kusaidia watu. And so I find myself in the service industry a lot. And really, we are a not-for-profit. So we are tunafanya kazi tu kusaidia jamii. So our work it's interesting. So follow us on our Twitter, Instagram pages, see what we do. But it's been interesting to see that development. So when I was in high school, finished high school, I wanted to serve in church and I didn't really know what to do. So I don't know how, but I'm very friendly. When I'm tired, maybe not so much, but for the most part, I'm friendly. So I remember one of the women's ministry, Kina Women's Guild. So this lady said, come join me. We're having a Christmas concert. Come take me. You can be the gopher. Mnajua gopher ni nini? KYM in English. So I was like, okay. So tulenda tao, tukatembea River Road, kutafuta mafabric. Sikuwa najua even ndio vitu zi happen. Hata sikuwa nimefikiria events ni kitu ya anything. Hey, we tembead town. And then we decorated. And I remember getting in trouble with my parents for being in church for too long. But those are some of the things that you'll face, is because not everyone will understand your passions. And so it's also knowing how do you have older people who can guide you so that you still honor your parents and not say, ai, ini passion yangu, nataka tu kufanya hii stuff uwenielewi. But it got to a point, I remember them coming and saying, no, I was with your child. So they used to have to call and say, we are here. And that's okay, because that's how my parents felt safe when I had left the house, which was hard to understand at the time. But fast forward to that, I then started creating spaces. Nilisema, oh Mungu Baba, nikona upako wa art. Hey, it did not look like drawing, but I make really nice spaces. So, mmoja wenu, if you ever find yourself in my house, it's a very colorful house, but it makes sense. So I also like to create spaces and decorate rooms. And in another life, I'm an interior designer. Like if environment doesn't work, and that wasn't something I knew. When I was in high school trying to choose subjects, it was environmental science. Then I was like, okay, you have to have a backup plan. So I said, okay, maybe hospitality, because I like talking to people and taking care of them. But it can be very confusing not knowing what to do next. And society has it that lazima ukue unajua next, alafu after that. So even as I am now in the sustainability space, things that have been core for me have been church, God, people, and the environment. So I'm a tree hugger in the fullness. My best place is sitting by a river or sitting in the forest, or climbing up a mountain and then there's like a view. Everything gets back into place. But that's for me. There are people who, I remember I now dance salsa and kizomba and bachata, tunajaribu. But I met one of the dancers. Those guys when mnafanyanga hype session, hey, mad respect. And I asked him, so for you, what do you do when you're sad? And he's like, I dance. And I was like, yeah, I just cry. But that's for him. He dances and he expresses himself and he creates something. So I think one thing I would say, even as you're listening to me, is who are you going to be is a question we keep asking. But who are you now? What are the things that make me smile? Where do I find? You don't have to now say, okay, now let me see what it's going to be. But I'd say put a pin on it. You never know what the Lord is going to show you. So anyway, so that happens. I finish school and I go to university. I have a great time and I like swimming. I don't swim much in primary, but high school I start competing. And my first day in Kenyatta University, where I did my undergrad, I went to the swimming pool. Kapata watu wakifanya tizi, And I'll kid you not, I went for a competition before I went to class. And I became captain after one term. So I don't know what that says about the team or about me, but let's say maybe it's me. That was pretty cool. But I was very honored. And swimming then got me to travel, and we did East Africa University Games and just traveling. And I was like, haya, yani nimesafiri hivi tu juu najua kuogelea. And meeting all kinds of sportsmen and women, watu wa hockey, football, sports sikuwa najua because nilienda shule ya madem, so you don't get to see all these things. But for me, all these things act as pillars because they are still shaping me and how I'm evolving. So I do my degree in environmental science, and my first internship was courtesy of a swimming competition. So that term we'd been doing environmental, atmospheric things, calculating air pollution, all those wonderful, exciting things that scientists like. And I was like, okay. So we go for swimming, and my swimmate says, hiya, that's ERC. I'm like, who are this? Please note, ilikuwa kwa masomo yangu iyo wiki. Sijui nilipotezaje. Because I told my classmates, like, yeah, we studied this. So mskize class. Because some of those things you'll find out, and then go around the world and you miss that opportunity. Because that happens. Time and chance, there's a time for everything, but also time and chance comes to you. So in that moment, how you handle those moments is what sets you up for the next moment. So it could be that I was sitting here and we had small talk, and that small talk, when we bumped into each other, he opened a door for me. True. It could be that day I was bored, so I really didn't notice him, and then the next day I see him, I'm like, do I know you? And that moment is gone. So take note of small things, because for me, that's what's shaped and opened many doors for me. So I see a friend of mine in that same organization, and I'm like, oh, we go to church together. And so my friend is like, take me to go say hi. I'm like, gosh, okay, fine. So I take her because she's a petroleum engineer, and ERC, which is now EPRA, Energy Regulatory Commission. Now it's Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority. Kuna mtu hapa anaijua. So I go and we talk about engineering, and I'm like, great. So the lady there, because it was just, they had sponsored the day, she's like, Kwani, you don't work for us? I'm like, you guys, you do oil, you're polluters of the environment. Why would I work with you? And she's like, no. And I never thought that was how organizations work. So she says, we have an environmental department. We have to take care of the environment. I was like, no. So that's how I got my first internship. Imagine, she said, come, see us. Even us, you can work for us. And so for a month there, I took a while. I went there a number of days because she forgot who I was. So I went a couple of times, and that was my first job. But then, because, again, I think people can really shape who you are. So my mom is like, there's a deacon. Ebu go say hi to him. I'm like, a deacon tena. Naturally, I like to say hi to people. But I was just like, the deacon? Okay. So I go say hi to the deacon, who then becomes my mentor. And the environment world, and I think any field you're in, you want to have, so there's different kinds of mentors. There's a life mentor, who you go through life. Family, relationships, jobs, they sit through your faith or your spirituality. They sit through all those things. But then you have specific mentors. So you could have a hair mentor, you could have a beauty mentor, you could have a fashion mentor, because, fashion is a whole thing. You could have a health, you could have a career mentor, a physical fitness mentor, a relationships mentor, a spiritual mentor. So when you have conversations with them, it's specific. You're not talking about, so how was your day? Oh, today, no, that's the other one. So he became my career mentor, and it was small things. It was reading my reports when I was done, and him giving me pointers, because we don't wake up knowing everything. By the time someone becomes skilled in something, kuna mtu alikwambia, chonga hapa kidogo, hivi, and I'd say that for anything. By the time you draw this, there are guys who are born talented, but I think everything has to be nurtured. Every gifting, every skill has to be nurtured. You can be a good spokesperson. Unaongeanga room tu watu wanakucheka. But even stand-up comedians will nurture their comedy. And it's in the nurturing that sometimes we take for granted that you really don't wake up like that. You didn't just wake up and you're like, fabulous. It was trial and trial and trial, and some days it wasn't so good. And in those days, you pick up, you hug yourself a bit, you cry, or you write, and then you move. And so when I finished campus, because I have all these opportunities and networking, and people just open doors for me, guys, there's a door that did not open. Hey. So it doesn't always work out smoothly. So don't see me here and be like, hey, tulienda tu aste. So I got a chance. I wanted to do camp ministry. So mkienda church, tunakuanga hizo teens camp, children's camp. So that's what I grew up doing, and I became a facilitator as well. So unapata watu wanatoka majuu wanasema, oh wow, they do it for summer camp for the whole summer. And so I wanted to do the same thing. So I got to go, and I was ready to become an American camper. But then that didn't work out, so I came back. Hey, Sema, life change. Like, what do we do now? Where do we go? So I did have a period of, I don't know what I'm doing. And I tried applying. And for me, I was like, every time I apply, I get in. Hey, yeah, that did not work. I was in shock. And then I just used to sleep all day. And my parents were not having it. Niliambiwa tu siku moja uende utafute job, hata hatujali ni job yote, whichever, upate job alafu uende. Alafu mamangu akasema, tulea kidogo, apate tu job. Hapo tu. But harsh as it was, it did jolt me. So sometimes that tough love can be like, well, you guys don't even care about me. I'm going through things. But I think I'm learning that the guardians and people who care for us can be harsh, but it's really not malicious. So I think if you keep training your eyes to say that when they were scolding me, they weren't malicious, then there's some grace to, even if it chomad kidogo. So because I swim, I asked my coach, what do I do? He's like, you can teach. I was like, yeah. So that becomes me, who decides now I need to teach swimming classes because I need money. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's good money. So, but then I go to one of the schools where I take students for camp, and they're like, you need a certificate for life saving. I'm like, shucks, I don't have that. And my teammates had been saying, chukua life saving. Like, I'm going to take 6 months. Crash course. Hey? But then I think like life is so interesting, and sometimes we think that we are lost and there are no more opportunities. Tumeanguka the most. But nikifanya hiyo crash course, we were 2. So swimming every day, like una learn kuswim styles zingine different, like you have to tow people. And there was a selection for a random pilot team to go to Morocco to do life-saving competitions, the first in Africa. So who did coach say? I have 2 students, take them. And so I found myself going to compete. And for me that was, unajua technically, nilikuwa nishafanya life-saving 6 months ago, sindio? But see God. So for me, I think the lesson there is you can get struck down, but even down there, the Bible says that God will make a way even when you can't stand. So it's that. And so you're not down there saying, okay, God, show me the way. It's the trying. It's the nikiwa hapa chini, acha tu nijaribu. And so I go and we come back, and then we start a leadership program, and I do ministry for 3 years. Actually, I do church ministry for 3 years, so I don't actually practice environmental work. But I would say that the funny thing is, for me, as I perambulate through life, the things that break my heart is definitely uncleanliness. Because I'm just like, how now? And when you travel, it's even worse. You go to Europe, you're just like, yo, I could have a clean road. Or even just you watch TV and you're just like, how come my life doesn't look like that? Are we not both humans? And so one of my desires had been, Lord, help me to, I wanted to do policy and urban development. That was like, well, how do I want to use my environmental science? I want to help make systems that work. But how did that look like? I thought she was going to be in the energy sector, because I did energy. Then I went to Kenton, did an internship because my mentor connected me. And then I met my now boss there. But so I thought development would be, we need energy, we need oil and gas, we need electricity. We can develop the country that way. clearly that was not meant to be the case. So fast forward to I finish my 3 years and I tell myself I want to go back to work, not church work. So I go back to work and my boyfriend at the time says, hey, you should try explore this path. So I apply, and I get in. But the funny thing is, again, what did I say were my core beliefs? People and the environment and building them up. So I care for you as an individual. Who are you? What are you doing? But also, how does our country look? So what is the core thing that we do when I joined PETCO at the time? Is we worked with the waste pickers. Like, hanging out in Dandora Dam site is now a casual thing in my life. And it's not just hanging out with them, but it's knowing, how are you? What are your needs? Mnafanya kazi ya takataka. Do you know how crucial kazi ya takataka is? Hakuna mtu hapa, niliona kuna kidamp hapo mbele. But I don't think there's anyone who is overjoyed that kuna kidamp hapo. Or that there are people who'll go and scavenge through it and find like 5 kilos and then they go sell. And you're like, yeah, kuna pesa, taka ni mali. But must it be in that undignified manner? So for me, that breaks my heart. And when I say undignified, I remember my experience in high school where we had a club called World Youth Alliance. And the core of it was that every human being has dignity. Inherent. It's not given. It's not like because I'm telling you look nice or you're worthy, now you're worthy. It's like, oh, thank you for telling me that which I already am. No. And so it's interesting for me to look back and say, I was in a club that was talking about human dignity, and now my work in environment is pushing the agenda for human dignity. So the thing I want you to keep thinking of is, what is my shape? What are the skills that I have? What breaks my heart or excites my heart? Ile tu roho yangu ina feel hapa. Kuna shida, nataka kufanya kitu, ama hapa na furaha, niko na furaha sana, nataka kuendelea kukaa hapa. And then, what are my abilities? What can I actually do? I can't draw, but I can create spaces, okay? And then, what are the experiences that have navigated me to today? You're sitting here listening to Gathoni. All of those things will influence the impact you have. So my path to sustainability is that there's sustainability everywhere. At least because that's the lens at which I look at. So if I was in the film industry, there's still sustainability there. I would say on a technology side, on the stories you're telling side, on the equipment. Infrastructure is not the word. When you go to textile and clothing and fashion, we have fast fashion. So it's not actually just that climate change is the work of sustainability. Right now, one of the things we do in the work is saying we're moving from a linear economy to a circular economy. So linear meaning you take a resource, you use it, you dispose of it. Then you find the same resource again. So if you're thinking of batteries, you keep taking new metals to make the batteries. But a circular economy is I take, I use. What else can I do after I've used it? So when we say we recover post-consumer packaging, it was made for that kind of consumption. But once you're done with it, what else can we do? Now that opens multiple doors for creatives, for artists, for skillful tradesmen, because niliona siku ingine there was some guy who was buying hard plastics and he took just a jiko and a molding machine, and now he's making makeshift bottle screws or some knobs that are useful. So now that's just him, and he's recycling. So is there art there? Yes. Is there skillful work there? Yes. Are you handling in waste management? Yes. So when I think of waste management, there's the basic recycling, we are making chairs, we are making furniture, we are making more bottles out of recycled material. That's on a large scale. But there's also people who are making chairs out of plastic, and that's good to a certain extent because not everything can be recycled at like first class kind of recycling. So maybe this is secondary recycling. But that's just in the recycling world. When I was studying, I would never imagined that the world of environment would evolve in this manner. that part of when I say I support the members is we're also thinking of how can we design your packaging better so that you're designing with the consideration of the environment. And you know what that means? It means you're more mindful. Think of it this way. Ukifungua hiyo paketi ya maziwa, ukikata hiyo kitu inaenda ngapi? Nani atachukua hiyo kitu? Hiyo kasnip. See, most times inaangukanga mahali. But one of the things I would say that for sustainability, if I would end here, is for you to be sustainable, you need to be mindful. What is mindfulness? It's having an awareness of what's going on within and what's going on around and how those two interact. So if you want to be sustainable, if you want to explore aspects of who you are in a different way or in a more impactful way, it's be mindful, because then that allows you to see yourself in 3D, if I would say that. Because you're not just perambulating through life. Like, nikaenda, nikaketi, nikakula, nikalala. But nikienda, kuna kitu ili happen. Nikikula, kulikuwa na kitu. Because that makes you aware of the problems around you. My dad says, as long as there are problems, there's work. Because if you're a thinking human and there are problems around you, it's a simple equation. You can offer a solution. Okay? So thank you.
Okay, I think you've answered most of my questions, but I have one. What are some of the challenges you face when promoting sustainability, and what are the strategies you've used to overcome these challenges?
I think I'd say the biggest challenge is you guys or us. That thing for being mindful is not something we grew up doing. And I'd have you guys think about today. Maybe when we finish, you can have that discussion. What have you noticed from the time you woke up to the time you got here? Maybe you can say anything you've noticed. It's not a trick question. Just noticed. Good or bad or random or boring. What did you notice today? It's been 3-4 hours you've been awake.
When I was coming here in the morning, it was around 7:30, and the bus I was in was blasting music, and there was soot coming from mpaka inaingia ndani ya gari, and you wonder, it's 7 a.m. Come on, you know.
And that's many things. There's the soot coming, there's the moshi, but there's also the blasting music. This week someone asked me, love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's a very, very fundamental instruction or commandment, if you can put all the weight it deserves. You know, if I blast music as the dere, juu niko hii lap the whole day. Sindio? So hiyo kitu iwachangamsha. So pia ni juu yao. But if I blast music the whole day, there's a few guys who are like, yeah, happy, happy, happy. But for the most part, your abiria wako tu hapo tu, stand to the whole time. So do you think that driver is mindful of his neighbor? So now imagine telling that driver to change his lifestyle and punguza volume for no reason other than it's not caring for my needs. The thing with freedom is that you have the freedom of everything, you know, all your Bill of Rights. Expression, eating, sleeping, many freedoms. But your freedom is your freedom up until it infringes on someone else's freedom. So as we perambulate through life, and we're trying to say sustainable practices are good for the environment and ultimately good for me, getting people to change their minds is quite a situation. Getting people to have the aha moment and be like, oh, this has value. That means I need to value another human being and not dispose my waste properly, because someone else is going to have to go through my takataka. It's not my problem, but because I care for my neighbor. So getting people to care, I think that's Jesus alilala tu hapo msalabani akijaribu kuget watu kukare. So I'd say that's one behavior change. Getting people to have responsible behavior and to care and to put value is one of the hardest things. And so for us and for me, we keep trying. We keep listening to people because there's a reason why you don't care. So it's not just that people are malicious. There's a reason why people don't care. It could be your job is too hard and I'm like, yo, I need to just exist. So we need to meet that need. It could be that I just don't have good housing. So you're telling me to figure out my waste and I barely have a proper house. So how can we work around that? So it's not just pushing my agenda, but the mindfulness goes back in saying, I see you, I see where you're struggling, and I think even if I can't get you a good house, this can still give you some relief. So it's now then your storytellers. How do we tell that story differently? So an art person is, you can be in any kind of industry. Yeah.
I have one question, and maybe you can take others from the audience. Yangu ya kwanza ni, how do you get into the field of sustainability? Kama sasa sisi.
I think nimesema, open your eyes. There's a door knocking somewhere. Yeah. I think I would say in all the things I've been in, it was 1 + 1 + 1 that got me into this field. So it's looking, it's being aware, because then you're aware. It's the things I was saying. It's who I talk to when I'm just around, because that person may not be the person who gives me the thing, but they'll change how I think. So when I see something else, I'll be like, oh, by the hapa kuna njia na singeiona. Okay? So that's I've said, the door of sustainability now is everywhere. And it also means reading the news, because then you know what's trending. So that you know everyone now is reporting on sustainability. And you get access to more funding if you get looking for grants, if you can tell sustainable stories. So if you're in the film industry, you can tell stories on environmental things. And there are many stories, so you have to choose one. Which one do you like? There's agriculture, that's crops, there's animals, there's waste, there's climate change, there's energy, there's clean energy. So read. We had the Africa Climate Summit. There are a number of issues they were talking. So if you're interested, look into it, because then you're like, okay, all this is happening. What am I shaped for to plug into this? Do I want to get into that? You can.
Okay, so my last question before we give the audience, what are the opportunities in your company for young creatives looking to pursue a career in sustainability?
We're a growing company. Things have been changing. So I think I mentioned storytelling. And if we have to change behavior, so we are ambassadors of our life change. So segregation at source. Just know where ukienda home ujipate ukitupa. How would you tell yourself to get you and your friends to separate your waste, for example? That's one aspect. So I wouldn't say that, oh, we're hiring, come, but because things are always changing, then sometimes we meet people who open a door for us and we're like, oh yeah, we can partner with you. So we may not hire you, but you're already doing something we want to do. So great. Let's do a project together. So it may not be that we'll hire you, but it could be that you're already you fulfill a need we needed and ushaitengeneza without us hiring you. So now we'll just pay you for it.
Thank you.
I don't have any question unless maybe to our audience. Okay. One question, eh? Swali moja hapo kwa audience. Tubonge na Gathoni.
It's also okay if there are no questions. Tunaweza sema tu mmetosheka, and it's been great.
So, kuna swali kwa nyuma.
Thank you very much, Gathoni, for your elaborate conversation, I'll say. I have two questions. One is, how do you bring in the balance when it comes now to career? You find a lot of young people, and I love your story. I love the fact that you're coming from a background of service in church, right? But there are individuals right now, if you look at their life, they are committed to something that actually does not give them growth or does not necessarily reflect to growth. In terms of an individual just aligning their vision to their passion, how would you advise young people to pick it up from there? Like now, if they decide I'm going to church, I'm going with the mind that I'm going to serve for this number of years and then move on to something else. Because I've realized that there's a dilemma when it comes to service, particularly in church. I'm focusing on church because I've been there also, bringing balance in church and also in your career. That is one. Secondly, from your organization, what are some of the policies that you can say you've been able to contribute to when it comes to the sustainability of the environment, and also talking about the big garbage that we have around here, because it is hazardous, right? And I would like to know, what are some of the policies that maybe you've contributed to, or maybe you've been able to come up with that will align garbage collection and garbage disposal in a manner that won't be harmful to the environment? Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, tufunge hapo. No more questions after that. But thank you. Also, I'm a bit short for time. Sorry. But in terms of the balance, you know that thing people say, I'm taking a gap year? I don't believe in gap years. In my life now, I've met a 40-something-year-old man who took a break from his career. He said, I am stopping work and I'm going to rest. I've saved up and I'm going to rest for 6 months before, and then after 6 months, I look for another job. And my eyes were open. I was like, you mean people can stop working? Okay, he had a good job. But it's that concept of I care about my life and the things I'm interested in. So I'm going to stop, recalibrate, and go next. I think we're in such a pushing environment. And so if what you're called to be doing, and if what your season is now is you're volunteering in an organization, do it to your utmost best. You know, my last project in church was we're renovating the youth sanctuary. Let me tell you, ilifika point nilikuwa nalia every day. Kwa nafika church tunaona project imeenda hivi. What was my former title? I was a projects and partnerships lead. That experience, hey, I saw things by fire. So I wouldn't say that you can look, I wasn't being paid, I barely paid anything. But we thank God that I could stay at home. But that gave me those years. People say, which years of experience do you have? Those are the ones. The other day, my friend appeared on a post she works for Glovo now, and I was like, wow, hey, my friends, soaring in high places, head of sustainability. And she said I inspired her. I was like, wow. And you guys know Glovo is it's not just a Kenyan company, it's in Africa, their headquarters are in Spain. And the title wrote there, she had 20 years. Guys, we are not 20 years of experience. We are in our 30s. That means alianza kufanya kazi lini? When she was 13. Kazi gani hiyo? And by this she wasn't lying, because we were like, did you just lie on LinkedIn? She's like, no. I was working with my mom and she exposed me to impact work, and for sure, she's my one friend who has adopted a child when she's 18. And that means that impact life is like, I want to care for someone. So at 18, she convinced her mother to adopt not one, not two. Actually, she adopted one and her mother adopted another one. So she was already a leader. So this thing and she's an engineer. So how she's the head of sustainability is not because she did environmental courses. And so it's how you care for life that creates that balance, because it's everything shapes you to being the impactful person. So if you're volunteering here, do it. And it's also knowing, now I can do less. So now I don't serve much in church. And I had a moment for, gosh, am I not impactful in the kingdom? But it's that this is the time to do this other kind of work. And as long as you're doing everything to the best of your ability and serving God, then you're working and you are balancing. So it looks different. You know, a seesaw, you guys have played on the seesaw. A balance seesaw, if you're two people, you're not all equidistant to the pivot. See, mko hapa katikati, there's a big person and a small person. Who is closer to the pivot to balance? Yeah. So then the big person is farther away. And then if you add someone else, if you add two people on the other side, now they move back. Sindio? The small person akipewa mtu wa pili atasonga nyuma. So you're constantly adjusting. So balancing is not 50-50, or if I have 5 things, it's 10-10-10, so that I have out of 50. Some things will take 2%, other things will take 70%, other things will take 20%, and ultimately you'll have 100. So it's this year, my 2% could be this, next year it could be something else. So it's being mindful of what's happening within you in that moment. Ndio ujue hii time nilikuwa nafanya tizi mob na ilinijenga misuli, but sasa kidogo na need kubande midnight oil juu niko masomo. So for this next 2 years, hiyo ndio sacrifice na ita balance bado. Next time niko na watoi ama niko na job ingine nafanya jobs mbili. So that means nafanya hivi na hivi, but you keep checking what are your priorities, because then you balance. So it's not that you can only do one thing, and it's hard. Even me, there are days I'm like, where am I going? But my community reminds me. So surround yourself with people who are going where you're going and are better than you and are also kidogo behind you. So kuna mtu unachocha na pia wewe unachochwa. Yeah. And then in terms of the policies, so when we started in 2018, we were a voluntary organization. These 6 companies, the ones I mentioned, they came together and said, we want to tell NEMA, please don't ban the plastic PET bottle, vile mliban ile juala. Because sasa ban kila kitu. So let's show you we can improve, we can regulate ourselves and recover this material. And so that's what they did. And 3 years later, so we signed an agreement with the Ministry of Environment, NEMA, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. 3 years later, the successes and the challenges, because it was hard, then pushed the government to say, okay, now we can give you a legal framework. So before it was 6 companies wakipatia na hiyo pesa. But imagine the impact we could have if we're able to recover 25,000 metric tons in 5 years. That's over 1 million bottles. If we're able to do that with just money as 6 companies, imagine if it's mandatory. So 2022, President Uhuru, he signed and gazetted the Sustainable Waste Management Act that made it mandatory for all companies, not just plastic companies, all companies introducing a product, not even just packaging. Ata watu wa magari, masimu, izi mashishio mnavaa, ngepa, clothes, anything that is a product. It's a very high standard. But every company introducing a product, whether they're importing it or they're just the distributor, they need to show their extended producer responsibility. And they can do it on their own, or they can join forces and form a collective scheme. So that's many opportunities for the industry and for business, but it also means we are very cautious. So that means in Kenya, it's not just private sector that's in charge of waste management. It's also the county government. So then how do we work together with public sector to ensure, because there are certain things that who is in charge of waste collection? It's the county. And sometimes the county will contract private sector to go to places they don't have capacity to. So it's now us working to keep each other accountable. So if we are giving these incentives, what can we do to help county collect, or what do we do? And so that's why even for us, pushing for the eco levy was a thing, because we're already doing this in EPR. So those are the policies we've been able to. And I would say that we also lobbied as well against the eco levy. So hapo ndio tupo.
Wacha tufunge nayo, kuna venye mgeni yetu ana rush pali na other meeting. So me personally asante sana for coming. Kufanya kazi poa sana kuongelesha. And on behalf of Bonifu Art Center, DJ Kelf pia tunashukuru sana. And I think I'll leave for you to close the program.
Yes, I think we're done. We've learned a lot. Thank you very much. I've been inspired to use my creativity to do something for the environment, for people. I think also most of you have been inspired, right? Thank you very much. Makofi kwake. Let's appreciate our guest. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Those who are live streaming, who are watching us on our live stream, please comment what you've learned, and let's keep the conversation going online. Thank you very much for this session. Before you leave, we want to have a small interview.
Q Tracks.